Hello there. Welcome to It Is What It Is. It's Monday morning. Had my coffee. And I decided I'm going to start story time today. I've been mentioning I've got tons of stories to tell. And I just haven't had a clue how to put them together, how to start, where to go, what to do. This story was prompted by an anniversary over the weekend and by a lot of attention it got. I saw everyone's story, and it was an incredibly tragic story. I for days have been reeling over this. The anniversary was on Saturday, February 26th of 1993. This is the story, or my story, of Willie Gross. I thought I've been thinking for days about how I was going to go about telling this story. It's an incredibly intense, tragic story, and nobody knows. I've never told anybody my side, my story. I've never really, therapists know, and my close friends know, obviously my family, and the people who were with me when this happened, but not the whole world. So I'm about to put it out there. I feel like everyone should know. It's been 29 years, so 29 years ago. It's 29 years ago, Willie Gross, on February 26th, 1993, took his own life. He took his own life in the cafeteria during lunch in high school. I'm sorry. I don't think that this is going to be an easy story, but I'm going to go for it. So, I have been trying to figure out how I'm going to tell my story. And I thought that the best way to do it, for me anyway, is to start with this. My freshman year of college, my English comp class, was assigned a paper to write that was extra credit. And it was see that? 97. I wrote this in 97. Jesus, I'm getting old. But it was an extra credit, and it was supposed to be, tell me something, write a story about yourself or something. I don't really remember, it was so long ago. But I've decided I'm going to read this to you. This is about the day that Will took his life. And then, after I finish this, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. So forgive me if I bore you as I read. It's not very long, so hopefully I'll get you guys to stick with me. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was just like any other day. I woke up at 6:30 and got ready for school. I guess it wasn't just like any other day, because I got up a half hour early, and I decided to wear a dress that day. I normally wear a t-shirt and jeans to school. It was February 26, 1993. I walked to the bus stop, and I was on my way to school. My day was normal. I had a lot of compliments about my dress. I remember actually feeling pretty that day. It was a rather odd feeling. The morning was fine. I went to all my classes, and of course they were boring. Then fifth period rolled around, and it was time for lunch. I went to lunch with my friend. We ate lunch together every day. There was nothing different about that day. When the bell rang, I was off to history just like I did every other day. It was Friday that day, and I had made plans for that weekend. My friend Will and I had been trying to hook up my friend and his friend. He asked me if I wanted to go to the movies with him that weekend, and I thought it was a great idea. I had been trying for days to get my friend to agree to go with his friend on a double date. I remember walking to history that day. I saw Will in the hall and I stopped to talk to him. I told him that I'd finally convinced my friend, to come with us, and I confirmed that we were still on for this weekend. Right as the bell rang, he said, "You look really nice today." History class started off just like every day. Mr. Smith took attendance and began walking around the room and his ruler, asking us questions from the lecture the day before. I sat in the first row, and my best friend sat in the last seat, first row. That day was the same as any other day. I began writing a note to my friend because we pass notes every class. This note was going to be about Will and how I finally decided that I liked him, and how I was somewhat excited about going to the movies that weekend. I never got a chance to finish that note. The loudspeaker came on and there was a long silence. I remember thinking, okay, what's going on now? And then our principal's voice came over the loudspeaker, and I remember him sounding so shocked. He said there's been an accident, and I would like everyone to remain calm. Then the sirens came. I still hear them in my head like I did that day. The feeling I felt that day was a scary one. I remember thinking, what if it's one of my friends? I remember Mr. Smith leaving the room to try and see if he could find out what happened. Then it happened. He came back into the room, and I'll never forget the look on his face. He walked up to his podium, and I remember him saying in a sad, shocked voice, "Willie Gross just shot himself in the head." It was the scariest feeling I have ever had in my life. I remember my friend running to me and hugging me. No one in my class knew who he was except me and my friend. All I could do was cry. I felt so alone. I kept repeating over and over, "I just saw him in the hallway. He's fine." The rest of that day was a blur to me. I know that I had a lot of support from my friends and family, and the next couple of weeks were really hard. The only thing I remember thinking the whole time was why. I do know that God was watching out for me that day. Will shot himself in the middle of the cafeteria during 6th period lunch. He was normally in my lunch. When I woke up that morning, it was just like any other day. Nothing seemed different. There was no indication that something might go wrong. That day is still fresh in my memory, and I think about it all the time. It made me realize that nothing is concrete, and now I take one day at a time, and I never take for granted life or the people in my life. Somewhere, Will is watching over me, and I know that he'd want me to be happy. I miss him more than you could ever imagine, and I'll never forget his last words to me. "You look really nice today." I think that might be the first time I've ever read that and not cried. So that's the story of what happened that day. Now we're going to rewind 2 weeks to Valentine's Day, where my story begins. On Valentine's Day of 1993, I was at home and my phone rang. Back then in 93, it was the phone on the wall with the cord. You had to run to it. There was no cell phones. I picked up the phone and I remember the person on the other end was, "Is Leanna there?" I'm like, "This is," and I didn't recognize the voice. And it ended up being Will. I had never talked to him before. He had never called me. I had no idea why he was. Never mind on Valentine's Day. However, it made sense after a few. A few days earlier, I had asked his friend out. his friend said yes. I was very excited until Will called me. He was actually calling me to break it to me that his friend didn't want to go, was not going out with me on Valentine's Day like he was supposed to, and that he said yes to me because he felt bad because I asked him to his face myself. I've never been known to be shy, so even back when I was 13 years old, I did the asking. So apparently he felt bad, so he had his friend Will call me to break the news to me. And as you can imagine, as a 13-year-old girl on Valentine's Day, I was a mess. Just a mess. And I remember that day, I ended up staying on the phone. Will, I just remember how sweet he was. He was so sweet. He's like, I'm so sorry, and da-da-da. And I just was thinking, what a nice person, what a nice friend to call for your friend who's too afraid to call for himself. But I'm, of course, thankful because it started what turned into a really great, quick relationship, friendship. Like, we were on the phone, I can't even tell you, for hours on that day. Like, I may not have ended up going on a date with his friend like I was supposed to, but he certainly made me feel better. He was very sweet, very kind, and by the time I was done talking to him, I didn't care that I didn't have a date with his friend. So every single day from the next 2 weeks, we talked on the phone for hours. We just every day, and we talked about everything. And like hours at a time. That was like back when I was in high school. I was a freshman in high school, and I'm a girl, and like that was back in the day. And so we were on the phone for hours every day after school, hours just talking and talking. And we got real personal. He got real personal with me about a lot of things. And I couldn't tell you what day or what conversation in the matter of that 2 weeks, what day, what was going on, because every day, you know, it's intense. We talked for hours and we were getting to know each other. I felt like I knew him completely in 2 weeks, just from talking to him every single day. And one day we had a conversation, and he was upset about his family, his dad. Him and his dad didn't get along well, or I wasn't really sure. He didn't get into too much detail with me. Just he was upset with his dad, and I remember him being so upset that he was talking about killing his dad. And I came from an abused family. I was being abused at the time, and I was 13 years old. And I said, I know the feeling. I know the feeling. Sometimes I would like to do that myself to my mom and dad. And I was real upset. And he's like, no, really. And he's like, I could get a gun. And I was like, I sort of laughed at him, like, okay, like, what do you mean? Like, what does that have to do with the price? You know, what does that have to do with anything? He then told me how he could. And it was a pretty intense story. All about unlocked doors and unlocked boxes. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, what's he talking about? Like, it seems extreme. And I just said, well, I know you're upset, but you don't mean what you're saying right now. You're just upset. We all say things we don't mean when we're upset. And you know, he said, you're probably right, Leanna. I'm just really upset. And I said, well, yeah, let's talk about it. And we talked for like at least 2 or 3 more hours after that point. And one point I like secretly met him on the ice pond with my friend to go hang out with him while he was skating. And in one of our conversations, in the second week, he says, "Have you ever seen Aladdin?" And I said, no, I haven't seen that one yet. It was in the movie theaters at the time. And he said, "Aladdin, you gotta go see it. It's such a you movie. It is such a you movie. You would love this movie. You need to go see it. We should go see it together." I said, yes, let's do it. Okay, yay. You know, at this point in 13, I'm like, woo. And I thought it was just super cute that he was like, "It's a you movie. I want to take you to it." And that's when we started the plans of going out. And, you know, he thought of taking his friend for my friend and all that fun little 13-year-old stuff that we did back then. And everything was good. Every day. At least 2 hours minimum. Thursday night was no different. I was on the phone with him. I talked to him. And, you know, Friday when I saw him in the hallway, he confirmed our weekend plans. Or we had decided we were going to go to see Aladdin that night, Friday, that night. And I'll just never forget when I saw him, look on his face. And in our school, we have like, the stairwells are like, you know, up and then a hallway, and then it's really, because we had a new wing that they put on and whatnot, and I was walking up the stairs, and he called my name as I was walking and said, "Leanna," and I turned around, and that's when he said, "You look really nice today." And that was the last thing he ever said to me. Probably the toughest day of my life. I've had some tough days. I've been living with the "why didn't I say something to somebody about what he told me" for a very long time. But with the help of, you know, a lot of people, I know that there was nothing I could do. And at this point, I just want to talk about how much that day saved my life. So many times since then, I've never felt, I've lost a lot of family and friends, and even at 13, I'd already lost a few people in my family, but this was a tough one, and it was tough to get through. There were counselors at school that I saw, but I've been struggling with my mental health because of my PTSD and my trauma that I went through and the things that my parents did to me. And there have been many occasions that I have been suicidal myself. And thanks to Will, I'm still here. I think if he had any idea the pain and the love that was around him, he would have never done it. And because of the pain that I went through with him, I refuse to ever put anybody who's been by my side and stood by me through the tough times to go through that pain. And there has been times where I've had to commit myself. And I'm not sure I would have if it wasn't for what I went through with Will. Side note, everyone else called him Willie. He was a soccer guy. Everyone loved him. And everyone called him Willie. even said Willie Gross. It's always Willie. I called him Will. It was only 2 weeks, but it was the most intense 2 weeks of my entire life, never mind being 13. I miss him. I still wonder why. Of course, 29 years later, in a few mental institutions myself, it's a little bit easier to understand. 1993, we didn't have the kind of resources we have now. So, that is it. That is story time. That is my story of Willie Gross. My story. And what prompted it was that everybody was telling their stories on Facebook for this past anniversary, which was Saturday. And it's 29 years. And I don't know what prompted it this anniversary, because this is the first time that everyone's like starting to tell their stories, and they're having big Facebook posts about it, and there's pictures everywhere. And my story was too long to write in a Facebook post. And there's so much that nobody knew, and I thought it was just time that I told my side. Not my side, my story. This is just... Anyway, for all those people who are thinking about hurting themselves, please reach out to anybody. Suicide lines, text somebody. Please reach out. There are people out there, no matter what you're thinking or what your head is making you think. There are so many people around you that love you, and so many people who will miss you. So stay, and let's heal together. Let's heal together. So I'm gonna end this video now. If you woke up this morning, if you got out of bed, if you put your socks on, if you took the dog out, if you fed your cat, if you took a shower, if you ate breakfast, if you did anything today that you didn't think that you could, I'm proud of you. And you just keep pushing, because together we're going to get through this. Peace. Thank you for listening, everyone.